5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are live. Coming to you live. Has it been live? Say what's up to the people, Dad.
Hey, coming to you live
Wow.
from the National Senior Olympics.
Wow.
Your mom and I are senior Olympians, meaning we qualified by winning medals in the Maryland Senior Olympics. And now we're here in a real strange place, Des Moines, Iowa.
That's not
Uh,
you. It's not Paris, is it?
it's not Paris.
Oh.
It's not New York. No, it's
Oh.
it's very odd. But the food is good. We've had a lot of good food, a lot of good people that we've met here.
I'm sure
Uh,
the people are very nice.
yeah, the people are super nice. But let me tell you, you may think, as you get old, oh, no one really cares. It's not so competitive.
Right.
Forget it.
Really?
It's just as competitive as it was when I was on the national circuit in my 30s.
Wow.
These old farts are competitive
Yikes.
significantly, severely, and they are really good because everyone here has to qualify from their state.
Right. That's a good point. Well, even qualifying is a great accomplishment.
Yeah, you're competing against the best in the country and, arguably the best in the world. But guess what?
What?
It's Liberation Day, right?
Well,
Liberation Day 2, I guess. We,
well,
we,
it's
we had a Liberation Day a few months ago. Now
right.
we have a new Liberation Day, right?
Well, it's like
But
it's like the deadline of Liberation Day is supposed to hit tonight at midnight, I think, on the East Coast. So in like 3 hours.
yeah, I wonder if this is like Y2K,
Right, right,
supposedly this big thing that's going to be an entire fizzle.
right.
And of course, it's the ultimate in Gish Gallop. The tariffs are here one day, they're gone the next day, then they're back, then they're at this level, then they're at that level. Chris Hayes, the commentator for MSNBC, who I like a lot, who's paid big bucks to follow all this, right? He admitted last night that he can't. It's just impossible to follow what Trump is doing with these tariffs.
Yeah, I
But
believe he's already, even though the deadline is tonight at midnight, he's already extended Mexico's tariff. So,
yes, he's postponed Mexico for 90 days, and who knows what other modifications he may have made at the last moment.
right.
But let's assume for the moment that things are not going to radically change in the next few hours, right?
No, nothing's going to change in the next 3 hours, I don't think.
Well, you never know, but let's assume that.
Yeah,
Fair assumption, right?
right.
Well, the Yale Budget Lab, who are experts in this, have estimated that unless there's a big change, which there isn't going to be, the average tariff level is going to go from 2.5% to 18.4%. That is a sevenfold, not 7%, sevenfold increase, actually slightly more than that. 700% increase in the tariff levels, most of which are done without a deal. Remember? Do you remember? It's hard to follow all this. 90 deals in 90 days, the administration was telling us. Yeah, right. It's now been almost 200 days. And you know how many deals we have?
Like,
Nine.
okay.
Nine.
That's
So
that's
we've
better than
gone
I
in.
thought. I was going to guess 6.
Yeah. Well, but the nine may be illusory
Oh,
because we don't really know the fine details. And there's a lot of dispute between the US and the countries supposedly that we're dealing with about what's really in these deals. So it's kind of nine purported deals. And who knows?
Obsidian Knight on the chat says 9 deals in 200 days doesn't sound so appealing.
Yeah, it's not quite 90 deals in 90 days, not even close. Now, this whole thing is being challenged in court, by the way. because Trump has invoked the Emergency Economic Act in order to justify all of these tariffs unilaterally by the president without going to Congress, which you would normally do for something this major. And it's now before the Court of Appeals of the Federal Circuit, which deals with trade issues like this one. All 11 judges are dealing with it. They had a hearing today, and according to news reports, there is a lot of skepticism as whether or not Trump has the authority under what's called the IEEPA to unilaterally issue these tariffs. So the whole thing could be cast into further turmoil depending on what the Federal Circuit Court of Appeals does, and then presumably it'll go on to the Supreme Court, and who knows what might happen there. And the administration has also indicated, even if we lose on this issue, we may find some other provisions of law in which we can use to invoke our tariffs, which of course will then provoke new litigation and new uncertainty. So 90 deals in 90 days, a huge broken promise, perhaps not as bad as solving the Ukraine war in one day. We're now 200 plus days and no progress on solving the war. And of course, there was the big promise, I'm going to bring down prices, particularly these grocery prices, and I'm going to bring them down quickly. Well, Sam, what do tariffs do to prices? Do they bring them down and bring them down quickly?
No.
No, they increase prices because the costs are going to be passed on to the consumers. Business may absorb a little bit of the costs. They're not going to absorb all of it because they want to make a profit. And so, it rolls downhill from the exporter to the businesses to you and me, the consumers, and we're already seeing it. We're already seeing prices going up, not down, and in some cases for groceries, double digit already. Before this whole thing even takes hold, double digit increases in certain goods, for example, beef and coffee, and smaller increases in lots of other products. The other point I want to make is how clearly this proves that Republicans have no principles, including the principles they profess to have, which they are perfectly willing to violate. I'm going to go off screen for a moment, if that's okay.
I don't know what you mean by go off screen. We can still
I
see
want to
you.
read something.
Okay, we can still see you, just so you know that. I
You
know.
can still see me.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty damn awesome. Well, we have, trying to find it.
Someone just
Yeah,
said it.
7 core principles. Guess who put out these 7 core principles? The fundamental principles of conservatism, right? None other than arguably the second most powerful conservative in America after Trump, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, who claims he has guidance from the Almighty to establish these principles. Well, one of his core principles, big, bold letters, is free markets. Quote, government often stands as the greatest obstacle to the progress and prosperity of free people, unquote. He advocates, quote, free markets and free trade. Free trade agreements, he says, allow for innovation, improvement, and economic expansion as risk takers, entrepreneurs, and business owners are given the liberty to pursue the American dream and create more jobs and upward mobility for more people. Government intervention should be limited. Free trade, which allow for all of these enormous benefits that Mike Johnson is outlining. This is one of 7 absolute core principles that Mike Johnson has published. Go to the most important think tank. Do you know what the most important conservative think tank is, Sam?
Heritage.
The Heritage Foundation. And they have something called True North. And guess what one of their principles is, Sam?
Free markets.
Free markets and free trade, pretty much mirroring what Mike Johnson has said. Nothing could be more contrary to what conservatives profess as one of their absolute core principles in black and white in exuberant praise than exactly what Donald Trump is doing with his tariffs. I could not emphasize more how this proves my point that I've made so long, that conservatives have no principles. I'm dying here.
Are you all right? Yeah, you seem to be choking out here.
I had the spicy stuff for dinner. And it's
Jeez.
getting to me.
I think you need some water. I don't know if Diet Coke is.
Water.
Yeah.
I got that too.
Yeah, drink some water. I don't know if
Survive.
Diet Coke is good with spicy stuff usually. I have a question for you, Dad. So you mentioned at the top of the show that it's hard to follow this. So it's hard for me to follow it too. I'm confused. So
Hard for anyone.
so are
I'm
the
sure Trump has no idea.
right? So like this idea of a deadline, right? So is the idea like are the tariffs paused right now? Because I thought they weren't paused. So is the deadline? So again, I'm confused. Like
Apparently, all tariffs are supposed to go into effect by tomorrow.
okay, so that's all right. That's what I assume. But I also thought I was hearing that there were already tariffs that were in effect.
Quite possibly.
That's why I'm
And
confused.
by the way, these overall tariffs also don't take into account something else, sector-specific tariffs
Right.
on things like pharmaceuticals or steel or automobile parts. That 18.4% is just the overall tariff rate. The tariff rates could be much higher on sectors, and also some countries have particularly higher rates. Trump has, just incredibly intervened in Brazil simply because he likes the authoritarian Bolsonaro, who's being prosecuted for corruption. Imagine that. He's slapped at supposedly, who knows, but at the moment, 50% tariffs
Right. That's
on
my
Brazil.
question. He announced this 50% tariff on Brazil. Is that already happening, or is that happening after the deadline? And what about
Unclear.
like
At least it should be happening by tomorrow.
hold on?
Let's
And
put it that way.
what about the base? Wasn't there like a base 10% or something on everybody in
There
the
is
world?
supposedly a base 10%, which
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
confusing.
all of this is supposed to go into effect tomorrow. Maybe.
Yeah, really.
No one is supposed to be lower than 10%, but lots of countries are higher than 10%, particularly since there are at best 9 deals, most of which are extremely dubious.
Yeah,
All
it's
right, there's some other
confusing.
things on my mind that I want to talk about. What is the one thing that Trump, who is otherwise the absolute Teflon president, even, surpassing Ronald Reagan, the supposed Teflon president. What is the one thing? Forget his destroying our democracy, contradicting free markets, raising prices, trying to deny people citizenship. What's the one thing he can't seem to escape?
Epstein.
Epstein. And it gets, every time he opens his mouth, it gets worse, Sam, not better. And the latest thing he said, we've heard all different stories, right, about why he supposedly broke with Epstein, right? failed real estate deal. He thought he was a creep. Now we have a new story that Epstein was recruiting underage women working for Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. I'm not sure why he had underage women working for him, but we'll let that go at the moment, including Virginia Giuffre, one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein. And by the way, this Ghislaine Maxwell, she's no victim. She is as guilty or almost as guilty as Epstein in trafficking young women and sexually abusing young women. It astounds me that when asked if he would pardon her, Donald Trump wouldn't say, absolutely not. I would never pardon someone convicted of pedophilia and sex trafficking. Says, I don't know. I have the power to do it. When she was sentenced, he said, I wish her well. Just astonishing stuff. Well, the latest astonishing stuff is, supposedly Epstein stealing these women from Mar-a-Lago, as incredible as that may sound, including Virginia Giuffre, a tragic story, a victim who recently committed suicide as a result of this horror. Well, her family reacted in absolute outrage to what Donald Trump had to say. A family spokesperson family statement says, quote, it was shocking to hear President Trump invoke our sister, Virginia Giuffre, and say that he was aware that Virginia had been, quote unquote, stolen from Mar-a-Lago. It makes us ask if he was aware of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's criminal actions, especially given his statement 2 years later that his good friend Jeffrey likes women on the younger side. No doubt about it. We and the public are asking for answers. Survivors deserve this. And then they talked about the fact, that they're talking to Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously trying to get her to make statements exonerating Trump. They have no other purpose of doing it in return for some kind of favor, maybe even astonishingly a pardon. The family had comments about that as well. They said, quote, if our sister could speak today, she would be most angered by the fact that government is listening to a known perjurer. Not only is she a pedophile, sex trafficker, also a perjurer. They go on to say, quote, a woman who repeatedly lied under oath and will continue to do so long as it benefits her position. Just, an incredibly righteous, legitimately angered, outraged statement from the family of this very tragic victim of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah,
One last thing on my mind.
Hold on.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I was listening to some of this earlier today, and someone asked Trump, did you know why Epstein was quote unquote stealing these girls? Did you have any reason to believe he was, et cetera? They asked him, did he know basically why he was quote unquote stealing these girls? And Trump said no. But again, just thinking about this logically, right? It's like, well, what would Epstein be using young girls for? He didn't own, like Trump, Trump owns properties. He employs a lot of people in spas or cooks or whatever, right? But Epstein, to my knowledge, he doesn't own service industry stuff, right?
He wasn't stealing them to wait tables, was
right,
he?
Exactly. He didn't own restaurants, or he didn't, so it's like, what, Trump, what was he, you had to, come on, you know what I mean? It's like, what was he stealing them for?
Yeah, and Trump admitted, as the family statement indicates, 2 years later, that Trump knew that Epstein liked women very young.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
None of it makes any sense.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't own spas. He doesn't own restaurants. He doesn't own service industry stuff. Why on earth would he need young girls.
One reason.
Hello, yeah, it's like,
Hello. Pretty
and
obvious, particularly when Trump knew that he likes young girls.
right,
Why would
yeah.
he think he would take young girls?
But like, let's say Trump really didn't know Jeffrey Epstein was running a pedophile ring, right? Don't you think, even if he didn't know that, again, he would think to himself, why is this billionaire man, quote unquote, taking these girls? Like, that's very strange, no? Extremely weird. Just that alone. Again,
There's
you,
only one logical explanation for it. As I
yeah,
said, he's not stealing to wait tables, you know, or to cook food. Let's face it.
yeah, it's
All right.
weird.
Last thing on my mind is Scott Bessent, Secretary of the Treasury, came out with an incredible comment. I don't know if you saw this. Trump is giving this $1,000 grant to children. I suppose not to children of undocumented immigrants or DACA recipients or people on temporary protective status. And by the way, they also came out with a policy of how they were going to enforce their ban on birthright citizenship. And it's exactly what we feared, what we talked about many, many weeks ago. In essence, show your papers. You've got to examine the birth, the parentage of every child born in America. And if you're a U.S. citizen, and guess what? If you don't have the papers to prove it, and lots of people don't, then your kid is going to be stateless and could be deported anywhere. It's just a horror show. And again, totally contradicting the core principles of conservatism. Another one, here we're quoting from limited government, number 2 for Mike Johnson. Government must be reduced. We should not have government encroachment upon us. We should control bureaucracy. Exactly the point you made, Sam, last week. Instead of draining the swamp, what are they doing?
They're creating their own very unique swamp.
Yeah, kind of, emblematic of Alligator, Alley there, that detention center in the Everglades, kind of indicative of a much worse swamp, much more intrusive, much more violative, again, of another supposed core principle of limited government. But aside from that, the other point to be made here is Scott Bessent has said this is a backdoor to privatizing Social Security. And of course, all of the advocates for older people, including the AARP, rose up in outrage. This has been a goal of conservatives for decades, a way of destroying Social Security, a way of no longer making it a guaranteed safeguard for those of us as we age, but subject to all the corruption of the financial markets. All the scams, right, that are perpetrated on old people are going to be front and center if this was ever done. Well, guess what? After the outrage, he tried to walk back these comments, but you can't unring that bell. And it's not as if this is something out of the blue. This is something that conservatives have been pressing for some time. We've already seen them go after other critical entitlement programs that people depend upon: Medicaid, food stamps, and even to an extent Medicare, making it more difficult to stay on or get on Medicare. And they've already made it more difficult to get on and stay on Social Security. For example, if you move and have to change your address or change your bank, it's way more difficult than it was before. And, for one moment, the curtain was down and Bessent revealed their true motives and true objectives. And don't believe for a moment his attempt to walk that back down because he knows that older people vote. And the outrage from advocacy organizations uh, hit him right in the face. But we know what he really meant.
Yikes. What did you have to eat for dinner? How spicy was it?
I don't know. I had some spicy Cajun stuff.
Oh, okay. You want to go grab a Kleenex and blow your
I
nose or
think I'm
something?
doing better, but
You think? I don't
something
know.
with a sniffle and
I don't,
but I think I got out everything I had to get out. I fought my way through it. I just
well,
hope it will affect me tomorrow. No, it shouldn't affect me tomorrow.
no, it's just some capsaicin stuck in your nose or something.
Yeah, I'm already much better. You got
One,
any further comments on your mind, Sam?
one thing a lot of people were saying when you were talking about Epstein, you were calling them young women, but in fact they are not
Women.
women. They're girls, minors, etc., children, whatever you want to call them.
Yes, they are not women. They are minors. They are children.
Yeah. All right, before we move on to questions, some quick housekeeping stuff. We only have 290 likes, guys. The likes really help us out. Please like the stream. If you haven't already, subscribe. If you're not subscribed, click that notification bell so you know we're live. Remember, donations and members get priority on questions. His book, Conservative at the Core, which you can see behind me, is coming out September
One.
1. So
And
make sure you check
already
that out.
was highly recommended for anyone interested in either politics or history.
Oh, either or. So I could just be interested in history and I could like your book, is what you're saying.
That is correct. And by the way, the book does debunk the idea that Republicans stand for free markets and limited government, even before Trump.
Oh, also check out our merch shop, Allan-Lichtman.printify.me. It is now pinned in the chat. Dad, how do you feel about throwing up a poll about our possible new format? Do you think we should do that?
Go for it.
So one thing we've been thinking about lately is maybe turning this, we've been going live for so long now and it's been awesome, but we're thinking maybe of turning this into a more formal podcast show format that we record and then upload. So for example, Tuesday, Thursdays, instead of being live at 9 p.m., which sort of pigeonholes us to the end of the night, we record an episode Tuesday during the day and then we upload it on 6 p.m. on Tuesday and Thursday, or maybe some sort of hybrid model. We go live sometimes, or et cetera, et cetera. So we wanted to see what people think about that. Obviously, the big disadvantage would be we're not live, but I think, other than the chat, it doesn't make a big difference. But let's just put it to a poll real quick and just see what people say. Let's say that would prevent us from commenting. So
Let's keep in mind, we're broadcasting right now in the dog days of the summer. So the audience may not be as representative as it would be, once the summer is over.
Everybody's saying keep it live, live, live in the chat. I haven't even put the
They
poll
love the
up.
live, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, the issue that we're facing is that YouTube is more of a video platform than it is a live streaming platform. So we fear that the live format doesn't reach as many people as a possible upload does. That's our main reasoning behind it. Everybody in the chat right now is going live, live. Literally
Yeah,
every
we haven't
single
made
person.
any decision, by the way.
No, we haven't made any decision. We're just brainstorming right now.
Yes.
Literally, I'm looking at the chat.
That's
Every
pretty
single
clear.
person is saying live, live, live. It just feels like when we look at the YouTube landscape right now and, the channels that are doing really well, they're doing more structured, formatted shows, which they upload. And we just feel like maybe we're getting left in the dust by sticking to this live format. I don't know. But let me do a poll. How should I phrase this? What do you think about a new format? Stick to live, period. That can be one option. Stick to live, period. Um, I'd watch either, or I'd watch either recorded or live, or recorded show. So we would still have questions in the recorded show. So we do the same. If you're a member, right? We'd still do the same thing where we glean member questions from our posts, and we'd still have live questions. We wouldn't have donations, but again, we're sort of hoping that the recorded shows would do better in the algorithm. But we'll see. So I have stick to live, period. I'd watch either recorded or live, or I have recorded show. Does that seem like good options to put in the poll, Dad?
Sounds good to me.
All right.
Hey, something just came across.
Oh,
Donald Trump is building a ballroom in the White House. You know how much the price tag is?
he's building a ballroom?
A
Why?
ballroom, God knows why. $200 million to build a ballroom.
Jeez.
He's going to be spending more than that on his golf if he lasts for 4 years. 400 million, presumably, we don't know, but maybe on tricking out this Qatari gift of a plane.
Right.
Meanwhile, he's cutting vital health information, vital research on the environment, vital research on health and disease, cutting aid programs abroad that have saved millions of lives, firing workers, but no problem about a $200 million ballroom. No problem about hundreds of millions of dollars on golf. No problem about $400 million to create a plane that I may never use until I leave the office. I mean, the, you know, they're so brazen. I'm not even sure hypocrisy is the right word. We need to coin a new term for what they're doing.
I kind of agree. Hypocrisy doesn't feel, it seems too
It's not
light.
strong enough.
Yeah. All right. That'll be our next competition. Who can come up with a better word for Donald Trump than hypocrisy?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to questions.
Have you talked about members and donations and all that?
Yes. Were you listening?
I'm old. I have short-term memory issues.
Right. This is from one of our new members, Allison Waller. They say, Dr. Lichtman, do you think our country will get out of this mess? You are energized tonight. Happy to see.
Yeah, we've got out of messes before. We got out of the mess. Actually, nobody thought at the time thought we could win the Revolutionary War. We were up against one of the greatest powers of the world, the British, who had tens of thousands of Hessians, German mercenaries, aiding them. The war went on for 8 years, and Washington had this small ragtag army, and somehow we got through that. We got through the crisis of slavery and the Civil War. We got through the Great Depression, World War II, the most destructive war in world history, the Cold War. Yes, we can get through this, but it's going to take the active participation and opposition of all of us, the American people. We're the only ones who can save ourselves. And, on this show, I've talked many, many times about the way in which you can act to save our democracy.
Very true, sir. Braid E says, I predict that a lot of these trade deals will fall apart because Trump will continue to move the goalposts by tariffing other things that were previously thought to be exempt. Or Trump will get upset with another country and cancel the deal, accusing the other side of not honoring the deal.
Couldn't agree more. That's why I said these are purported 9 deals. Even at this point, it's not clear whether they're real deals, whether Trump and, the governments supposedly he's cut a deal with see eye to eye on what's actually in these deals. And of course, we know Trump is perfectly capable of reneging on any obligation that he has ever made. And so, absolutely, there is a real possibility that A, most of these deals may not be real in the first place, and B, could well fall apart. Absolutely right.
So already in this poll, we've got a pretty big consensus. 58% say stick to live. That's out of three options.
And the other two are scattered.
So stick to live is 58%. I'd watch either recorded or live, 38%, and just a recorded show is at 4%. Maybe we
That's a
should do
pretty clear consensus.
maybe we should do a poll about if we should do one a week recorded and one a week live. Should we do that?
Try it.
All right, let's
See
try
what
that.
happens.
Because this poll is pretty clear. Let's
Pretty
do another
decisive.
one.
Yeah, we don't need to pursue that anymore.
How about this format? One recorded, one live. Just stick to two lives. A lot of people are saying, that in the live, they feel a sense of community. And I think that's one thing that we are most grateful for is the sense of community. So
It really is. We have an incredible audience, but it's dwindled a bit, but that may be because we're in the dog days of summer.
yeah, that might be. All
And
right.
donations and memberships have not kept up.
Yeah, you guys have to understand we're thinking about this from a behind the scenes perspective, but we're also keeping you in mind, and that's why we're letting you have your voice in all this.
Absolutely keeping you in mind. You're our
Yeah.
first priority.
Right.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. It's not easy for me to do this twice a week.
It's not easy being green.
No.
This is from Roger Burgess. They say, "Hello, y'all. Love the podcast. Trump recently fired a large portion of the Consumer Price Index agency staff, the agency that collects various data. I think he did this to obfuscate the fact that inflation and prices have been rising since February. Thoughts?"
I couldn't agree more. I think I've said this before. I'm very skeptical uh, of any information coming out of the Trump administration. And that's really frightening because, I've said this before, once you lose truth, then everything else falls apart. Under every other administration, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, you could count on the professionals within the government, those who are nonpartisan, dedicated to their jobs, providing the most accurate information. But whether that will continue under Trump, I think is an open question, and I'm very, very worried about it.
I also want to say we had a bunch of donations flood in while we were talking about the format change from Honolulu Water, from Leslie Peak, from Fried Jemmy, from Crossfire, from Philip H. So thank you all for that. I saw those all.
Nice. They want us to keep this up.
I guess that's their sign of like, keep it live, keep it live.
Vote with your pocketbook. I like it.
Right. I like it too. All right. And if we do stay live, we ask you for you guys I think the most important thing that we want to do is expand the audience, right? So it's like we ask you all to share, if we do stay live, the algorithm doesn't like lives as much as it likes uploaded videos. So help us share our stuff, share our content, and that is how you can pay us back. All right. This is from Philip H. $5 donation.
Good buddies.
They say the chances are high Maxwell will be pardoned and divulge only Dem names and say Trump is innocent. His base will eat it up. How would we fight this?
Well, it's already started with the Guthrie family noting that she is a horrific criminal, a pedophile, participant in sex trafficking, and Trump pardoning her is condoning those actions, and she's a perjurer. Of course she's going to lie if it's going to get her out of 20 years, a 20-year sentence. I guess she served about 3, Of course she's going to lie about this. And I'm not certain. Yeah, most of his base will buy it, but I'm not certain all of his base. It's so patent. It's so obvious and so horrific. If anyone in his base actually cares about pedophilia, and I've got to believe some do, it doesn't take a big crack in his base to be decisive politically. Remember how close elections are. Most critical elections are decided by 1, 2, 3 points. If he loses 5 to 10% of his base, that is incredibly significant politically. God, I hope he does not pardon her. That would be one of the most heinous actions a president has done in our
I
history.
think in terms of pardoning, it would be the worst pardon ever in American history.
Yeah, worse than Jimmy Hoffa, even.
Yeah, probably, honestly.
Worse than Richard Nixon.
Oh, definitely worse than Richard Nixon.
Yeah. Those are probably the two most notorious. Worse than Mark Rich, the rogue financier. Worse even than some of the murderers and swindlers that Trump has already pardoned.
Right. Can the quote rule of five unquote truly force the DOJ to release the Epstein materials, or do Dems lack the necessary law enforcement power to back up this move?
It's going to be very difficult for the Dems to force the DOJ to release this material. They may get a vote from Congress, but what happens if she just ignores it? Which is, I think, the most likely outcome. Let me put it this way. The only thing you will ever get out of this administration would be material exonerating Trump and blaming Democrats. He's already claimed, that it was Biden or Obama, responsible for the problems with Epstein. Yet it was under George W. Bush that this awful sweetheart deal that got him off the hook. It was Alex Acosta, who then winds up as a cabinet member in the Trump administration until he's bounced when this information comes out. And of course, Epstein is then prosecuted later under Trump and is imprisoned and commits suicide under Trump. This is not Biden. This is not Obama. This is not Grover Cleveland. This is not Franklin Roosevelt. It's Donald Trump and George W. Bush.
Obama. What are your thoughts on global superpowers like France, UK, and Canada announcing they will recognize a Palestinian state?
I'm not sure, exactly what that means. Does that mean a two-state solution, which I have advocated for a very long time? And I hope it comes about. As Dwight Eisenhower said back in the 50s, you're not going to solve the problems in the Middle East by military means. There have to be other ways of resolving the issue, something we haven't been able to do in the 70 some odd years since Eisenhower was president.
It seems that some MAGA folk are slowly awakening to the fact that there is actually a genocide occurring in Gaza. Do you think that this, in combination with the Epstein blowback, might force Trump to take some kind of action about Gaza? I don't hold out much hope, since it would involve Trump seeing reason. Oh, and I think I came up with an unofficial slogan for the GOP. As opposed to truth, not tyranny, we have distraction and lack of action. What do you think?
I like that. That's pretty. It's a little much, but it's very, very, very cool. Trump already does seem to be making some move, months too late, recognizing that there's a humanitarian crisis in terms of starvation in Gaza. I doubt if he's going to go beyond that to fundamentally challenge his prodigy Netanyahu in Israel.
Can you?
And by the way, you can be a firm supporter of Israel, and that doesn't mean you have to support Netanyahu. Trump seems to believe supporting Netanyahu is equivalent to supporting Israel. Nothing could be further from the truth. Lots of us who are lifetime supporters of the state of Israel believe that the worst thing that has happened to Israel is Netanyahu, who has turned what should be a moral beacon, a Jewish state, into an international horror, an international pariah.
That distraction and lack of action was from Cosmo Trilby, just to
Oh,
say,
one of
give
our
them
good
credit.
buddies.
Can you speak about the North Carolina Senate race? How does Governor Cooper entering the race affect the overall election? I live in North Carolina. He was a wonderful governor.
Yeah, he was, popular governor in a, you know, not quite purple, somewhat leaning red state, although uh, while the Republicans have done very well in federal elections, in recent state elections, the Democrats have done extremely well, including Roy Cooper himself. I think this does throw a major monkey wrench into Republican plans to hang on to the Senate. Uh, I think Cooper is at least 50-50 and maybe even favored. We'll see who comes out on the Republican side, but maybe even favored to win that Senate seat. And that's another seat that Republicans are going to have to devote a lot of resources, a lot of money into, distracting from other states that they need to hold. I'm not predicting the Democrats are going to take back the Senate, but Cooper's entrance into that race at least makes it more likely.
Thank you to Philip H., who just gifted 5 memberships. I think Philip H. is our highest gifter of memberships. So shout
Yes,
out
he is.
to Philip H.
Thank you.
Yesterday, a majority of Senate Democrats voted to block weapons sales to Israel. Do you think this shows that the tide is turning?
I think the tide is turning against Israel. The international tide has already turned decisively. Again, I don't want to say Israel. I want to say Netanyahu and the Netanyahu government. I think, he has managed to antagonize almost everyone. And by the way, there is kind of a dirty little secret behind conservative support for Israel. Do you know why they're so fervently in support of Israel, despite widespread anti-Semitism, as we've seen and continue to see among conservatives?
Yes, because they believe of an Armageddon.
Right, that the Jews must be in control of Israel in order to have Armageddon, the final battle between good and evil, and the second coming of Christ on earth. This is thoroughly developed in my 2008 book. I'm not just talking off the top of my head. White Protestant Nation, The Rise of the American Conservative Movement. That was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award in general nonfiction, all nonfiction books published in the US. And I developed this point at some length. And what's going to happen to the Jews once all of this biblical prophecy unfolds, supposedly, unless they accept Christ as their Savior? In other words, abandon their own religion. You know what happens to the Jews, Sam?
They go to hell.
They go to hell. So, this fervent support of Israel has nothing to do with actually supporting the right of the Jewish people to pursue their own religion, free of anti-Semitism.
There's actually a lot of discussion about how Jesus actually never talked about hell, and that is a
Never
construct.
did. It's not in the New Testament. That's correct.
Well, it's a construction by later
Yes, it is an
church
absolute later construction. A
folk.
lot of constructions about things Jesus never talked about, right?
Right.
Did he ever talk about abortion, homosexuality?
No.
Mm-mm. What did he talk about mostly?
Taco Bell.
Yeah, right. Wealth, greed, truth.
Kathy Nelson just gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, Kathy.
Nice. They really
Yeah.
want us to stay live.
Yeah, it seems that. I mean, obviously it's a little skewed because we're taking the
Of course it's
polls
skewed.
during a live stream where all the people who watch live are watching. But it's very, very clear that at least within this group. And
And
Michelle
we take that
Martinez
very
just
much into
donated.
account.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're definitely going to take all this into account. The Limited Light $5 donation says their slogan is POP, party over policy, in terms of things to accuse the GOP of.
Like that. Party over principle may be better.
Party over policy, party over principle. I like party over principle. Yeah,
Or power over principle. How about that?
I like party over principle.
Yeah, that's good.
We've got pop and we've got TNT. They're both
Yeah, we've
explosive.
got pop and TNT. That's great. We
John
need to
Rogers just
spread this
donated.
around.
John Rogers just donated 5 memberships.
Wow.
Thank you guys. We appreciate that. They're making their voices heard. You know, our chat is a democracy at the end of the day, right?
This is true.
It's a form of democracy, I
Even
guess.
though you're the big boss.
Right. At the end of the day, I can do whatever I want.
Yes, you can.
Yeah. Dr. Lichtman, if you had been president instead of George W. Bush, how would you have approached the situation with Saddam Hussein and the aftermath of 9/11? Sorry, I'm not laughing at 9/11.
I don't think Saddam Hussein had anything to do with 9/11. That was one of the fictions that they perpetrated on us, along with the fact that they were developing nuclear weapons. You know, let not the next warning be a mushroom cloud over Washington. You know, Saddam Hussein was a Ba'athist, a secularist. He hated Al Qaeda and the extreme Islamic. So, uh, if you wanted to deal with 9/11, Iraq was one of the last places you want to deal with. Where did most of the perpetrators come from, Sam?
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia. What do we do about that? Nothing.
No, we hoisted up Saudi Arabia even higher.
Exactly.
We didn't do nothing.
Yeah. And we've continued to do that.
Susan Clark says party over principle is great.
Yeah.
She likes it. Kathy Nelson just gifted another 5 memberships.
Wow.
And Philip H did too. They both gifted double 5 memberships. Thank you guys. We appreciate that. Let's see. We're out of questions.
Wow.
Yeah, that's all we gleaned. Remember,
I'm not sure
members.
that's ever happened before.
Members, you got to remember that we glean our questions ahead of time in the YouTube post section. So make sure before each show you're going there and posting your questions so that we can glean from them. Or else it's just that the chat moves too quickly now. It's too hard to get questions directly from the chat. So that's why we moved on to that.
All right, everyone, wish me luck. I'm running the 800 meters tomorrow morning. And then the next day I'll be running the 1500 meters. Not easy stuff for old folks.
Yeah, I was going to say we're getting off pretty early, but you got a big day tomorrow, so maybe
I have a very big day, so getting off a little early is fine.
Yeah.
Good night, all.
Wait, hold on.
Okay.
I forgot to send Savannah the post show, so I just sent it to her. But so even though we're ending early, you all should come to my channel at Sam Lichtman and hang out during the post show. Don't you agree, Dad?
That is essential.
Oh, Savannah already got it. Perfect. She's way ahead of me.
Right. So
Honolulu
we are
Water.
very much going to consider all of your views. We've made no decisions, but we will continue to provide analysis, insight, perspective that we believe is unique and you can't get anywhere else.
Honolulu Water says, good luck, Allan, on your races.
Thank you.
You're getting tons of good luck. Danita Robertson says, good luck. Randy Jacobs says, go Doc. Joan Cappuccio says, good luck. PG. A lot of people. Oh, the poll results. 61% say just stick to 2 lives. 39% say 1 live, 1 recorded.
They love the live.
They love the live.
Again, it's people who are on the live.
True. All right, Dad. Go relax. Good luck tomorrow. We all know you'll do great, and you'll have fun. Even if you don't
Yeah,
do
I'm just
great,
looking for top 10. Top 10 in the country would be fine. I'm at the edge of the age group. Next time I move up, and then I'm going to look to win.
definitely. Blazers, 5 gifted memberships. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to Annabelle TV, Michelle Martinez, who donated as well. All right. See you, Dad.
See ya. Good night.